While many fantasy tales recount epic adventures of fighting dragons and monsters in order to seek loot and glory, this is a fantasy tale more can relate to. It is a tale of refuge, a place of safety from the cruel world, even if just for a moment. This unique approach to the world of fantasy is explored in Pirate Abba's ongoing web novel, The Wandering Inn, which I have recently taken great interest in. Since its publication on July 26, 2016, it follows the misadventures of an innkeeper named Aaron Solstice, who lives in a fantasy video game world inhabited by heroes and monsters alike. Our story begins with the recount of how a battle-torn Aaron encounters the inn for the first time. The inn was dark and empty. It stood, silent, on the grassy hilltop, the ruins of other structures around it, but the inn still stood. It was waiting, not in a sentient, thinking way, but in the way all buildings wait. It was waiting for someone to find it, for wasn't that the purpose of an inn? And someone did find it. A young woman stumbled through the grass, up the hill. Her knees were shaking and she was gasping for air. Her lungs burned. Her right arm was burned. Smoke was still rising from the charred fabric on one shoulder, and her legs were bleeding. But still she climbed the hill, because of the inn. After all, there was no mistaking it. Despite the years, the building stood among the rest of the ruins, mostly untouched by the passage of time. That was not what attracted the young woman to it. It was merely a thought. The inn. In every world, the inn was a symbol, from a place to meet and rest to a meeting point from which epic quests could begin. The inn's hearth fire and warm glow at night was a beacon for the wary, the hungry, and the desperate. But this inn was dark. The girl, the traveler, had nowhere else to go. Slowly, hesitantly, she stumbled towards the door and pulled at the simple handle on the door. Nothing happened. After a second, she pushed and the door creaked open. Mustering her courage, the young woman peered into the black room beyond. Her instincts told her it was a common room, a place where food and drink would normally be served. However, the inn was long deserted, and a thick layer of dust covered every surface. Of course it's empty. The intruder sighed and leaned against the doorframe, her strength exhausted. She rested her forehead on one arm, wincing as she felt her burns and the cuts on her legs. She tried not to cry. She'd known that the inn was probably deserted when she'd seen it from afar. She'd known, but she hoped. Ever since I came to this world, everything's been going wrong, huh? Inside was darkness. Outside was worse. There were things outside. Monsters. She'd seen them. Monsters. And an unfamiliar world. A world that wasn't hers. Slowly, the girl stepped over to a chair and collapsed into it. A plume of dust rose and she burst into a fit of coughing. The dust was overwhelming, but she was tired. So very tired. And though it was empty, deserted of all life, and dark, the inn still called to her. Its walls offered some safety. So the young woman sat and closed her eyes for a moment. It was peaceful. The young woman sat back and felt the pain of her injuries fade, at least for a moment. She decided to rest here, at least to begin with. But a thought nagged at her, something that she could only voice now, in safety. So she opened her eyes and addressed the empty room. I'm really hungry. And thus, the legendary tale of the Wandering Inn began.